Let me ask you a question. So in terms of like, somebody comes to you and says, I have a DBA, or, I've heard it's only $800 to do an LLC. Are there specific kind of businesses where you don't recommend an LLC, or you're like, that's probably not the best approach for
Yeah. I think, a very, very basic and it really is a very crass rule of thumb is I would say, if it's a potentially a high volume business,
Okay.
low profit margin, actually a corporation taxed as an S corp may be more appropriate model than if it's a long-term, lower volume business. That's one somewhat rule of thumb that you could use, right? So let's look at it in the real estate context. If someone was going to buy a property and they wanted to rehab it and flip it, there are many people that want to do that. They're probably getting rid of that within a year. A corporation or an S corp may be a better vehicle, and this is all subject to tax advice, of course, may be a better vehicle than using an LLC.
Okay.
Right. So for a long-term rental, you may use an LLC is probably more appropriate. Okay. Now, with that being said, granted, an LLC can be taxed as an S corp, and that's the beauty of the LLC. It kind of offers the best of both worlds of both being a corporation, right, in terms of the tax standpoint, but this flexibility without all of the rigmarole of kind of maintenance, corporate governance of a corporation. But if you were going to be in the startup world, as many people are trying to start businesses and are raising money from people and friends, a corporation is likely to be the better scenario because you can offer different classes of stock and it's more attractive to investors. So, though that's another important consideration. You also want to figure, well, how do they intend to manage and run the company day to day? Are there multiple partners involved? Are some of those silent investors versus active managers of the company? So, and taxes, of course, these are all the sorts of things we're going to think about when we decide what's the type of entity to be set up, right? Even if the answer 7 times out of 10, maybe we're still using LLC, you still want to work through that kind of flow, right? To make sure you've ended up at the right place.
Well, one thing I know you've actually told me this several times. I've had colleagues or friends of mine saying, "Well, I already had the LLC, and I already, I got the big binder, the pretty binder, and it has all the paperwork. I'm covered, right?" And I know you're the one that actually told me that that's generally first step, but there's more things that need to happen than just forming the entity itself.
Right, exactly. And so, we have to think about it. Why did the person form an entity in the first place? Generally, they formed an entity, not just because they've started a business, but they've heard of this idea of liability protection, right? Limited liability. And so that's why they're really doing it. Well, as you know, as a litigator, the legal protection that an entity is going to offer you is only going to be as good as you are in treating that truly as a separate company. So where do we, and as a distinct entity from yourself as an individual, right? So where do we see common mistakes that are made? People are not maybe doing the annual minutes, let's say if they're a corporation, right? Then they're not recording, the important events through their minutes. And this is why we offer an annual compliance program for our clients. So we kind of check in with them, make sure their books are in order. They commingle the money, right? And that's very common. You've got a guy or a gal who's just started their business. It's maybe husband, wife, and me, it's just one of them starting a business. And they say, oh God, it seems a little stupid for me to form this entity, have a separate bank account, right? Where the income goes in. Oh, I need to buy some groceries for home, or I've got to pay this bill. I'll just pay it out of the business account because it's going to be a write-off. That's how they see it.
Right.
But you've commingled your funds now. So this is a litigator's best case scenario. They're going to say, well, you've got an entity, but you don't deserve the protection because you've not maintained corporate formalities. So this is really just what we call an alter ego of you. And so that's the legal theory they'll apply when filing a lawsuit, and will pierce the veil, will cut through the veil of this corporate protection. And now you're personally on the hook. Right. So it's all well and good if you've got that corporate book, and often clients come to us and they've already got that done. And so we ask them, okay, are your books in order? Can we review and make sure you follow the things you need to do, right? So that's another important part of the exercise that I like to do with clients, is what I call a corporate audit. It's like taking your car in for a checkup. Go kick the tires, see if there are any issues. And I'm not one to create busy work. It's not how we want to practice. I don't think that's good counseling as an attorney. A good attorney is going to be commercial and should put themselves in the shoes of the client.
Right.
That means they should understand their commercial needs, be a little realistic about what that client's doing, what they're trying to do, think outside the box, right? And, identify where there may be issues and then walk them through the steps that they need to do and follow in order to maintain that protection and continue to be able to grow their business without any worry and hopefully be set up for success, right?